as long as God thinks it's great, as long as God thinks it's good, as long as God approves it, as He commissioned you, as He sent you, has He met your need, has He been with you, has He given you favor, has He enabled you, do it. Don't care about what people say, because God will remember you for the work that you have done and richly reward you all throughout your life.
Be glorified, be glorified, be glorified, be glorified, be glorified. Be glorified, be glorified, be glorified, be glorified, be glorified in the heavens, be glorified in the earth, be glorified in this temple, Jesus, Jesus, be thou glorified. Oh Jesus, 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 be thou glorified. Worship the Lord, worship the Lord, worship the Lord. Let's worship the Lord again. Worship the Lord, worship the Lord, worship Him, worship Him, worship the Lord, worship the Lord, worship the Lord in the heavens, worship the Lord in the earth, worship the Lord in this temple, Jesus, oh Jesus, be thou glorified. Oh, glorify Jesus, 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 be thou. Oh Jesus, we worship you.
You know, a lot of people don't even talk to God about their work because they think God and work don't even get along, and God doesn't even care about our work in this world, you know. And he goes to God. He says, "Hear, O our God, for we are despised. Turn their reproach on their own heads and give them as plunder to a land of captivity. Do not cover their iniquity. Do not let their sin be blotted out from before you, for they have provoked you to anger before the builders." He prays. And look at this. So we built the wall, and the entire wall was joined together up to half its height, for the people had a mind to work. When the guy said, even if a fox runs over the wall will be broken down, he deliberately intended it to knock all the confidence out of people and get rid of any kind of motivation that is there and discourage the people from working. But Nehemiah prays, instead of discouragement, They all had a mind to work. It doesn't matter what the guy said. Now, because Nehemiah has prayed and trusted in God and put his faith in God, he finds that people are motivated to work. Even such insulting words after such insulting words were spoken, people were highly motivated to build, so that half the wall is already built now. Quickly they are building. Verse 7, now it's happened when Sanballat and Tobiah, the Arabs and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites, heard that the walls of Jerusalem were being restored and the gaps were beginning to be closed, that they became very angry. And all of them conspired together to come and attack Jerusalem and create confusion. Now they're conspiring to attack. Nevertheless, we made our prayer to our God, and because of them we set a watch against them day and night. What does Nehemiah do? Again he prays. Something wonderful here for every single one of us to learn. Take your burdens to God. Take your concerns to God. Take the problems, the difficulties that you face to God. By praying only, he received the boldness to speak to the king. By praying only, he received clarity as to what to do with his life and how he must be the builder of this wall. By praying, he received the boldness. By praying, he received divine favor. By praying, he arrived there. By praying, he has progressed thus far. Every step has not been easy. Every step has been difficult. Difficult every step of the way. Only the first step was easy. When he went to the king, God had already moved on the king's heart and he gave him favor. But after that, it's been difficult. The second leg of the journey was difficult because these guys show up and they wanted to be the devil's agents, trying to stop them. And verse 9 says, nevertheless, we made our prayer to God, and because of them, we set a watch against them day and night. Again, they pray and they set a watch. Verse 10, then Judah said, the strength of the laborers is failing, and there is so much rubbish that we are not able to build the wall. Now, inside there is problem. People seem to say, it's very difficult, we can't do it. And our adversary said, they will neither know nor see anything till we come into their midst and kill them and cause the work to cease. What they're trying to do is they're trying to come in there, sneak in there without their knowledge and kill them. So it was when the Jews who drew near, dwelt near them came, that they told us 10 times, from whatever place you turn, they'll be upon us. Some people have informed them, and they received 10 warnings from various directions that this is what is being planned. They were planning to attack. Therefore, I positioned men. Now listen to this. I positioned men behind the lower parts of the wall at the openings, and I set people according to their families with their swords and their spears and their bows. And I looked and arose and said to the nobles and the leaders and to the rest of the people, do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, great and awesome, and fight for your brethren, your sons, your daughters, and your wives. Look at the man's determination. He's not going to back off. See, in this world, it's not easy sometimes. And that is why prayer is important, because prayer results in determination, faith. Prayer makes you a person who does not give up easily. So he goes and he hears about a war, possible war. They're going to attack. And he goes and sets the people according to their families with swords, spears, and bows. He's weaponizing families. Father, mother, children, all having bows and spears and swords, waiting. Families are going to fight now. He says, you fight for your wife, for your children, for your property, you fight. These fellows are coming to kill us. Such determination. You know, this is enthusiasm that will get on everybody. When the leader has that kind of enthusiasm and sincerity and purpose and clarity in mind, then it gets on everybody. This is what prayer does. Prayer brings that kind of determination. And it happened when our enemies heard that it was known to us, when the enemies found out that these people have found out already that they're going to attack, that God brought their plot to nothing, that all of us returned to the wall and everyone to his work. Now, the attack was not possible because everybody came to know about it. So it was from that time on. Now listen to this. that half of my servants worked at construction, while the other half held the spears, shields, and bows, and wore armor, and the leaders were behind all the house of Judah. See, just because the war was cancelled, he didn't, go back to normal mode. He says, these guys are against us, we're going to always be watchful. How many of you know that Christian life itself is a spiritual warfare? You cannot go in ordinary mode ever. You can't say everything is fine, so let's not be so careful and all that. Just enjoy, don't be careful. You got to be always careful, because the devil is always working, the devil is always busy, the devil is always planning, don't know what he's going to do next. So you got to have your eyes open, you got to always be in a prepared mode, all fully prepared to deal with anything that rises. And then verse 17, those who built on the wall and those who carried burdens loaded themselves, so that with one hand they worked at construction and with the other hand held a weapon. See, half of them worked and half of them built. And even those who built, with one hand they worked building the wall, and the other hand they carried spears and weapons. Every one of the builders had his sword girded to his side as he built. And the one who sounded the trumpet was beside me. Now, amazing determination to get the job done. In this world, the devil is such a mean devil. The devil is against anything and everything that you do as a child of God. Because whatever you're doing is a mission that God has given into your hands to do. He wants to spoil everything, stop everything, and abort everything. But you must be determined to finish what you began. You must be determined to accomplish what God has called you to accomplish. Otherwise, you cannot accomplish anything. This is not for people who run away. Christian life is something where you work always with preparedness to deal with anything and win the victory. And until you win the victory, you never give up. Then I said to the nobles and the rulers and the rest of the people, verse 19, the work is great and extensive, and we are separated far from one another on the wall. Wherever you hear the sound of the trumpet, rally to us there. Our God will fight for us. Constantly motivating himself and others. He says, God will fight for us. That doesn't mean you don't take any spears and swords and all that. You keep the swords and spears. But God will fight for us. That means God will engage with us. If there is a war, God will fight the battle. God will give us victory. We have to be prepared. We have to be alert. We have to do everything that we need to do. But God is the one that gives us victory. Such confidence. Such great opposition. The people that are opposing are not ordinary people. Whole societies are opposing them. Ammonites and the Arabs and the Arabians and the Samaritans and society. 4 or 5 regions were coming against them. Yet, such determination. He says, so we labored in the work, verse 21, and half of the men held spears from the daybreak until the stars appeared. At the same time, I also said to the people, let each man and his servant stay at night in Jerusalem, that they may be our guard by night and a working party by day. So neither I, my brethren, my servants, nor the men of the guard who followed me took off our clothes, except that everyone took them off for washing. Can you believe this determination of this guy? He said, we never even removed our clothes except for washing. Can you motivate people like that? He's engaging people to do the work. While they do the work, they must also carry a spear. With one hand they must work, with the other hand they must carry a weapon. Half of them worked, half of them were carrying weapons, ready to fight a war. Such dangers are there. And they have to complete the wall, and he's not giving up. Many distractions are there, many things trying to come and stop him from doing it, and he's not doing it. And the enemies are great enemies. 5 different societies are coming against him. Regions are coming against him. But he doesn't care. He's ready to deal with it. He says that they never took off their clothes except for washing. Can you believe that? The only time they took off their clothes is to wash. Otherwise, not even taking off their clothes. I read entire chapter 4 really. because it's a very interesting chapter. When I read it, I feel so good because I can identify with it. When you do God's work in this world, but I'm not talking about religious work, I'm talking about your life in whatever professions you are, whatever you are called to accomplish. Everything is God's call. That's what Martin Luther contributed to Christian society. He identified every profession as a call. That's the thing that Martin Luther brought about newly. Before that, only religious professions are a call. If you're a priest or a nun or some kind of pastor or something, then you're called. Otherwise, that's not a call. Nothing sacred about it, nothing good about it, essentially. It's worldly work there. Even today, that language is there. It's in worldly work, they say. But the Bible makes no such distinction. Martin Luther, 5 centuries ago, 500 years ago, got rid of that distinction. One of the major contributions to doctrine is the fact that he realized that everything is a calling from God. If you're a typist, it's a calling from God. If you're a clerk, it's a calling from God. If you're a teacher, it's a calling from God. Lawyer, it's calling from God. If you're a businessman, it's calling from God. Whatever you are, it's a calling from God. You're contributing to the building up of that society that God desires. You are there for God. And that is why this chapter is such an important chapter, and I read the whole chapter literally. It motivates me very much. It tells me never give up. It tells me no matter what problems you face, never give up. It tells me work is not going to be easy. Work is not going to be, nobody's going to hand it in a platter to you. It tells me that when you grow and when you do well, when you're successful, a lot of Sanballats are going to be there. And many Chennai Tobias will be there, you know. They are there in every city, in every town, every country. No exceptions, you know. Somebody's going to work against you. Somebody's going to do things against you. Don't be surprised when somebody does things against you, talks against you, does things against you. You should not be surprised. If you're surprised, then that means you have not read the Bible. You should expect it. That's why you must always pray, that you must always depend on God. You must always develop faith in God. Learn to trust God more and more. See, Nehemiah goes back and tells the story of how the king obliged him, how the king gave everything that he needed, and the words that the king spoke, he told the people here. He said, if God has helped me so much to begin this, will he not help me to complete it? That's his point. Every time he runs into a big problem, a big challenge, he says, look, God helped me to start it. God gave me such favor. God helped me to begin it. So if he has helped me to begin this thing, he will also help me to complete this thing. So enemies, they're always going to be there. Don't concentrate on them. Don't concentrate on what weapons they've got, you know. That they've got discouraging words. They've got doubts to give to you. They've got weapons. But look at the weapons you've got. You've got a call. That's a mighty weapon. You're a called man, called by God. You know, later on in the next chapter, one fellow comes and tells him, not in the next chapter, 6th chapter, one fellow comes and tells him, come, let's run away and hide, because they're going to kill us. He says, how can a man like me run, he says. What an answer. He says, how can a man like me run? What does he mean? He says, I won't run. I'm not the running type. How can someone like me, called in such a way by God, commissioned by a king, having divine favor upon my life and the hand of God upon my life, why should I run and hide? I am not the type to run and hide, he says. People try to do all kinds of things, you know. His own people worked against him. This Tobiah guy, he was married into some families in Judah, you know. Some rich families in Judah. He was married and his son was married to some women from the big people and that nobles in that society. So they had connection and always they were helping him. But Tobiah was his enemy. He's the guy that said even a fox running on the wall will be destroyed. His own people grieved him by speaking about him, talking against him, joining with their, relative and so on. But he never cared. He said, doesn't matter who's against. I'm going to do what God has called me to do. I've come here to do the work and I will complete it and do it. He said he stood firm in what he believed. Amen? And if you notice, the more they came against him, the more he prayed. The more he prayed, the more confidence he got, the more determination he's got, the more stronger he became, to the point that he was having families to carry weapons and be ready to fight the war. Let come what may. That was his philosophy. Let it come. Mother, father, grandfathers, grandmother, everybody carrying weapon. Let's fight it out. I am not going to give up. The more he got into problem, more they opposed, the more he prayed. The more he prayed, the more boldness and confidence and determination he received, and the more he was progressing. So that in 52 days they were done. Finished doing the work. Are you there? Thank God for the enemies. When you look back finally, I think one of these days I'll write my own story. And I will dedicate one whole chapter to the Sanballats of my life. We got to thank them, because the more they do, the more you get motivated. The more they try to do things, the more you pray. The more you pray, the more bold you get, more determined you get. And the more careful you become. Because they're watching for you to fail. They want you to fail. They want you to be destroyed. So that makes you even more careful, even more trusting in God, even more believing in God, even more depending on God for His strength and wisdom. It makes you more and more close to God and makes you progress in your work tremendously with great speed and get the job done. How many of you are here? Chapter 6, basically this story ends. But chapter 7 onwards, he is now not just building the walls of Jerusalem, he is building the society. As a social reformer, he rebuilds the society. That's an interesting story. Maybe sometime we'll talk about it later on, but not now. Now we're talking about work and the attitude towards work and the enemies of our work. Chapter 5, verse 19. Listen to this. I want you to go home with this today. He says, remember me, my God. You will read it 2-3 times here in the first 6 chapters itself. Remember me, my God, he says. He's always praying like that. He said, Lord, remember me. Remember me, my God, for good according to all that I have done for this people. Now in chapter 5, there were some social injustices, These people were enslaving one another, lending money. People are mortgaging their houses and lands to their neighbors. And then when they can't pay back, they take the house, lands and everything, possess them. And they take their children as slaves. They're enslaving one another. So he calls them and says, look at this. He says, the Babylonians took us as captives. They're strangers, Gentiles, and they've kept us in chains. Now why are you making your own people slaves, enslaving your own people? And they couldn't talk back to him. They decided to give back the lands and houses they possessed from these people and forgive the loans. All these things were already taught them in the Old Testament. They were told to forgive the loans. They were told not to take interest from a brother. They were told, to give back the lands that was mortgaged and so on. The year of Jubilee was such a year. All these things were taught to them, but conveniently they forgot, because who would like to do that? They would like to raise the interest rate, but not forget the interest. Keep the property, not give it back. Now he comes in chapter 5. There is the wonderful story in the first 13 verses. He takes a promise from them that they'll give it back, and he calls the priests and tells them that they must promise to the priest that they will give it all back to these poor people that are suffering. And then in chapter 5, verse 19, he says, remember me, my God, for good, according to all that I have done for this people. He has built the wall. He has brought reform in society. He's done all these things. He tells God, God, I know that one day I will stand before you in judgment. At that time, remember me for every good thing that I have done for this people, and reward me accordingly. He believes in eternal rewards. He believes that his work will not go to waste. He believes that whatever he does one day will bring him the praise of God and the rewards of God. And that those rewards will continue throughout all eternity. That God will remember what he has done and pay him back for what he has done, the good that he has done to his people. Now that is the best motivation for life and work. When we work with that motivation. Many people may not appreciate your work. They may not praise your work. They may not think that you're doing great. But that's fine, as long as God thinks it's great. As long as God thinks it's good. As long as God approves it. As he commissioned you, as he sent you, has he met your need, has he been with you, has he given you favor, has he enabled you, do it. Don't care about what people say. Because God will remember you for the work that you have done and richly reward you all throughout your life. Amen?
He's turned my mourning into dancing again. He's lifted my sorrow. I can't stay silent. I must sing, for his joy has come. He's turned my mourning into dancing again. He's lifted my sorrow. I can't stay silent. I must sing, for his joy has come. Where there once was only hurt, he gave his healing hand. Where there once was only pain, he brought comfort like a friend. I feel the sweetness of his love piercing my darkness. I feel the bright and morning sun as it ushers in his joyful